Laura Tyson, she is, of course, a former economic advisor to President Bill Clinton. She's been an outside advisor for President Obama. She joins us now from California. She's a professor of economics at the University of California, Berkeley. And Laura Tyson, thank you so much for joining us. And I want to get your impressions, first of all, but from an economic standpoint, if I could. To what extent is it fair for Republicans to say that this vote, at least what we know so far, amounts to a referendum on the president's economic policies?
Well, I think it amounts to a referendum on the state of the economy. I think it's been clear in the polling leading up to today that people are most disturbed about the economy. Is the economy stupid, to use James Carville's old line? The economy is disappointing to people. We are in a very deep hole that we're digging out of, and it seems that most voters are saying, we are unhappy. We want to try something else.
And some of those voters undoubtedly are going to be telling us, listen, we expected more from this administration. We expected more from the stimulus. Hindsight being 2020, walk us through the missteps from the Obama administration from a Democrat's perspective.
Well, sadly, I would have to say that I really don't think there were significant missteps, except for something that probably most voters who voted against the Democrats would not believe. I think the stimulus package was too small. I think the stimulus has been working. I think we all, to the extent there was an error, it was to underestimate how deep the recession was and how tenacious a hold it had on the economy. So a bigger stimulus would have been preferable, but that was really all that the Congress was willing to put through at the time. And by the way, most Americans in their polling don't agree with me. So I don't think the administration made many mistakes. I think that the economy is worse than we expected and needs more medicine. And now I am very, very worried that really nothing happens. Nothing happens for a long period of time, because the people who are winning tonight did not have a proposal about what to do. It was no to what has been done. It was no yes to this is what we should do. So I'm very worried about gridlock.
Well, when the president says, Laura Tyson, I'm dealing now with a potentially Republican-controlled House of Representatives, maybe still the Senate, how do I get that medicine? What is the medicine that might perhaps win the support of at least some Republicans? Do you see anything out there at all that's going to bring the unemployment rate down from 9.6%?
Well, remember, I do think that right now we're on course for fiscal contraction, net fiscal contraction, because the stimulus is dying out and there are no policies to replace it. The stimulus now is being shifted to the Federal Reserve and monetary policy. Perhaps there's room, I would hope there might be room, to work with the Congress on policies targeted to employment creation. So some ideas that sometimes are raised are a temporary reduction, relief in payroll taxes. There's some discussion of repatriation of offshore profits tied to job creation. There's some discussion of more generous expensing
let me jump in if I could. Do you think either one of those ideas, repatriation or payroll tax, do you think this president would truly consider those ideas?
You asked me where there's places where one might be able to work with the Congress, and I was saying these are ideas which have been proposed that I think are possible areas. The president himself has proposed making the research and development tax credit permanent, something which many Republicans support. He's proposed 100% expensing by business for capital investments, something I think would get a lot of support. There is an idea out there to really have a national infrastructure initiatives. Many Republicans do support that idea. It's controversial, but I think it's an important one to pursue. So I've laid out a series of things where I think there's the possibility. What I am concerned about, though, is that, in fact, we've already had members of the Republican Party say that their main agenda over the next few years is to defeat the president. We have not seen an active set of proposals that the Republicans have run on around the country of what should be done, and I'm very worried, therefore, that actually very little will be done when the economy is in need of additional medicine.
Playing field change for the Bush tax cuts, given what we see the Republican victories tonight across the country? Certainly, we're still waiting for a lot of results. But has the president's leverage here changed, and is he going to have to concede that even those for earning in the top 2%, they're going to have to be extended as well?
Well, I think that clearly the playing field has changed. So, but I have to say that I basically listened to Kevin, and I largely agree with him. I mean, I do think that we have two major issues confronting the country going forward. One is what to do about the long-run deficit problem, and there is a commission, a bipartisan commission, that the president has appointed that will be reporting in early December with some ideas. Clearly, I think tax reform needs to be part of this set of ideas. It's not just about how we reduce the deficit, but how we have a more sensible tax policy. So tax reform, yes. That does suggest that since right now the economy is weak, that if the place for political compromise is that you extend all of the Bush tax cuts for a year or two while you work on this tax reform and while you continue to provide some fiscal support for the economy, then that's where the playing field will be. I personally have said many times, I think it would be better stimulus if we took the tax cuts for the top 2%, basically allow them to expire, took the revenue and spent it on something else. But I know politically that's not going to happen. So therefore, I think the playing field is as Kevin pointed out.
All right, and Laura Tyson, let me just tell you and Kevin Hassett, networks now reporting Republicans will take the U.S. House of Representatives, will seize control of the House next year. Still, we're waiting to see what's going to happen in the U.S. Senate. Laura Tyson, I know you're going to leave us soon, so let me put one more question to you on this, on the deficit issue right now. You talked about the Deficit Commission. It reports December 1st. Does this president need to send the markets a signal, the bond vigilantes who might be lurking out there somewhere, that he is serious about reducing the medium-term deficit in addition to trying to get the economy started in the short term?
I think the country needs to send that message. And in the U.S., of course, economic policy is shared between the administration and the Congress. And I am very concerned that a number of people who have run and won in this campaign, while they have talked about the deficit and talked about the debt, have offered not a single proposal for what to do about it. So I think the U.S. actually has some time. I think if you look at the debt problem and the deficit problem, the deficit is coming down. It is coming down substantially next year. The debt is growing as a share of GDP, but if we can figure out a way to get something in place that begins to operate in 2015 and beyond, I think we have time for that. I think the bond market will give us time for that, but that's why it's important to have a plan now, as soon as we can. And I do worry about gridlock. Gridlock, therefore no plan, and sooner or later, yes, the world is going to look at us and say, exactly what do you do to begin to stabilize that debt to GDP ratio in 2015? And these are hard choices. There are no easy solutions to these numbers. I would just suggest that people go to one of the many websites that exist now where you can put in numbers. Take the Committee for a Responsible Budget by a nonpartisan organization. You can go and look at the ways it would take, some of the very painful things it will take to begin to stabilize debt to GDP by 2015.
Very painful decisions, to be sure. I hope the Congress gets to work on it.
Laura
Tyson, we thank you very much for your thoughts this evening on this election night. Laura Tyson joining us from California this evening. Appreciate it.